Hello everyone. Have you ever wanted to go back to a simpler, perhaps stinkier time, where the roads are made of mud and the average lifespan is the ripe old age of 27? Well, I think I've got the game for you. Welcome to Oxbow, home to community shared bathtubs, a large range of incredibly angry animals, easily contractable diseases, and mothers that do this to their children for some reason. Upon arriving here in these bountiful new lands, I had been tasked to do one thing: build my very own self-sustaining village, complete with farms, production buildings, houses for all the residents, a market area, and, of course, no medieval village is complete without a tavern. See, I had a slightly different idea of what a great village would look like in this game. With there only being one current tavern in all the lands, the poor people of Oxbow were in need of a good old beverage. So I took it upon myself to work towards getting everyone here incredibly sloshed and build my town's industry completely on booze. This was easier said than done, however. You see, the tavern building, where we'd be fermenting our goods, is pretty much the last building unlocked in the production line of buildings in medieval Dynasty, which, according to the Steam page, can take up to 200 hours of playing to unlock. But that wasn't going to stop my alcoholic mindset to make the world a happier, more violent place. If you're interested, these are my settings, and these are my credentials, and this is... Starting our adventure, I wake up here, the lovely town of Piastovia, the largest town in the lands of Oxbow. This is going to be the place where we sell most of our goods, complete a lot of questing, and maybe we could even take part in the famous tradition of the town: freezing in a Toyota ad. It was also the home of the only other tavern in all of Oxbow, the future rival of our products. After speaking to the leader of the town, he told me that I'd have to go and build a town of my very own, and that I'd have to build a town on my very... I'd have to... That's it! Where's this guy's house teach you a lesson about cutting me off? Oh, that's not bad, actually. Yeah, I'll take that. Oh, another chest. Oh, wouldn't hurt to just... Oh. Oh, one more chest gonna... Oh, I'm clearly gonna need this. This is mine. Leaving town with a full inventory of brand new goods that I'd acquired through legitimate means, I left to go and find my brand new town location. I did have the perfect spot in mind. Right here. It was only a small walk from town, had this lovely little pond area, plenty of resources around, and just down the road, there was an old mine, rich in plenty of ores we were gonna need. It was perfect. So a quick stroll over, and I placed down where I built my very first building, my lovely waterfront house. This took way longer than expected, but by day 2, she was up, and I was ready for expansion. By the end of spring 1, I'd gotten a resource shed, a well, 2 wood sheds, and a second little house next to mine on the water, so by the start of summer, I'd be ready to hire up some help. I also got some roads down to start planning our little town, which I decided to call the lovely settlement of Ballsville. Summer had arrived, and there was plenty to do. But first I headed to town to first accept some quests, as quests equal reputation, and reputation equals more villagers that want to live in beautiful Ballsville. So, time to hire some people. These campsites outside of the towns in the game is where we'd be able to find our new settlers. By squinting my eyes, I'd be able to have a really good look at their stats. What I was after was a lady and a man who was skilled in extraction, as these two were going straight to work in the woodsheds I'd prepared. Unfortunately, there was only one high-level extractioner, Ed Burger, and a male farmer, Zellibrat. So I hired them both as their first 2 official residents of Ballsville. Considering I didn't have any farms, however, I got to work making some, although my character wasn't very happy about the summer heat.
What a scorcher.
Here are the finished fields. Nice. So when you hire NPCs to your town in this game, they need 4 main things. These things include a house, water, food, and firewood. If they don't have a house, they can't access any of these things. To make their mood go up even more, I can do things like give them better food, insulate their houses, decorate their houses, and give them a little cheeky kiss every day. Obviously, the more villagers you have in your town, the more of these things I'll need. But the more villagers, the more resources I can produce. And if we were going to complete our goal of hydrating the lands, I'm going to need a lot of villagers. Speaking of, it was time to head to the northernmost town, Lanoka, the village of bacon, firewood, and now I was here for some additional quests and some new villagers to hire as I built my third house. But something else was preoccupying my mind. Something much more important. When I finished my raid on everyone's homes, I did this for some reason. Anyway, I went to go hire some more people, but got hit with the trust issues excuse. So I had to get some questing done to remedy this. The first summer had come to a close. With plenty of new buildings, I managed to put together a barn, a farmer's shed, built 4 upgraded wood houses, 3 extractioner huts, a kitchen, smithy, hunting lodge, herbalist hut, workshop, and a food storage. The foundation had been laid for not only when the massive people arrived to work for me, but the groundwork for our soon-to-be alcoholic empire. Some other things to note this season: I built some composters and filled them with berries, which by next season will have rotted, which then we'll be able to turn that rot into fertilizer. I also spent all my coins on a brand new backpack that gave me an extra 20 kilos of weight. So, with the village still in its early stages, but with a strong groundwork, I was ready for autumn. Autumn, or fall, or colourful trees time, whatever you want to call it, was here. With the new season, our composters had turned all the berries into rot. So I swiftly turned said rot into fertilizer, and I spread it all over the fields with the help of Zelibrat. All questing was to be done, and I took to making sure all my villagers were fed in the form of mushroom soup, which I needed mushrooms for, would you believe, and meat. So a hunting trip was in order. I'd also fallen madly in love with one of the villagers, and after a few literal small conversations, I'd convinced her to marry me. I fucking love this cutscene. Now I know what you might be thinking. Wight, have you forgotten about your great purpose? Where are the drinks? The people are thirsty. Don't let your new wife distract you from what's truly important. And you're right. Maybe I had gotten a little off track with this whole feeding people and getting married nonsense. The problem is, we were still a while away from unlocking the tavern. And although I'd been progressing the village in the right direction, I had to make sure everything was ready for when the tavern would be finally ready. One of the main beverages I want to produce when the time comes is cherry wine. And what do we need to make cherry wine? That's right. Apples. Just kidding, that would be silly. It's cherries. So problem A is cherry trees take at least 5 seasons to grow and to start producing fruit. And problem B is we were going to need an incredible amount of them to fill our wine quota. Solution? I needed to clear the entire piece of land behind my fields to make way for the humongous cherry orchard. Well, that took several hours. Now I could actually place down the orchard fields. I blueprinted these lovely orchard fences down, which don't actually do anything, they just look pretty, and then went and purchased every cherry sapling in the lands, which didn't turn out to be that many. So I was gonna have to buy more cherries every season until the orchard was full. Zelibrat, the legend, also came to help me on my orchard.
Oh, this dude's actually getting to work. Yeah, Zelibrat. Oh boy. What?
Now I had one final important task before the end of our first autumn. In Medieval Dynasty, you have to do a tremendous amount of walking. And I, personally, was sick of it. So I made my way down to the southernmost town, Skokie, where I would be able to purchase my very own arse. So I purchased my new donkey.
Guy looks pretty cool. Guy's got a pretty can-do attitude.
and all the necessities to keep him going, like suspension and a battery and brand new tires. Returning back to Ballsville, I decided to name our new beautiful best friend, Steve. Getting around was now much smoother.
Huh, interesting.
So, winter was coming, and another season of plenty of progress had been completed. I'd started insulating and upgrading the original small waterfront houses for the people, began even more houses as well. Steve had his very own little beautiful plot of land in the center of town. Rye had been sown in 2 of the fields, which would be ready by spring. And of course, the beginning of our grand cherry wine production had started to take shape. Ballsville really was starting to come together. Winter had stopped coming. It was here. And with the snow also came my now pregnant wife. In 3 seasons, I'll have my very firstborn, heir to Ballsville. In the meantime, there was a lot to do in winter. I broke these down into 3 important things that I wanted to have sorted before spring starts. These were tools, fertilizer, and housing. Let's start with tools. So I'd recently unlocked the mine and the smithy. The new smithy unlocking the ability for myself or my villagers to forge bronze tools, and the mine unlocking the ability for the children, the village, the gun, for the mines. With the mine set up, we could have a steady flow of tin and copper ore for the smithy to make bronze tools out of, which would provide tools for every job in the entire village. So, Steve and I zoomed over to the cave I mentioned way back at the start of the video and built ourselves a mine. Hopefully the bear spawn down the hill won't be a problem for the children. Once a sufficient amount of ores was now streaming in from the now functioning mine, all I had to do was assign 2 villagers with high production into the smithy, and they began smelting the ores into ingots for me to then farm up production XP by making bronze ingots and bronze tools. I will eventually fully automate this, but
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
next up, fertilizer. Now, I was going to need a bunch of pig, which would make for me and the townspeople plenty of manure, which I could then make into fertilizer. I had the perfect location in mind for Project Pig, this long flat island just off the coast of town. Let's call it Pork Island. After a quick build, our first pig pen was complete. Steve and I then headed back up to the northern town where I could purchase the new porkins for Pork Island. Then I assigned one of the farmers we had to the pig shed there, which would then begin the automation of fertilizer. Lastly for winter, housing. Now, I did complete a number of new houses randomly throughout winter, and I insulated a bunch to keep the residents happy, but I didn't have the resources to sort out my housing situation permanently. So I planned out a bunch more housing areas and called it a day. We were going to need an insane amount of stone, wood, and limestone to sufficiently house our soon-to-be alcohol-filled town. So this was going to have to be an ongoing project. So Ballsville Year 1 had come to an end, and it had become quite the establishment, if I do say so myself. Only problem was that everyone was still thirsty, and I needed to figure out a way to get the tavern unlocked, and unlocked fast. So as it hit spring,
Oh no.
Spring was here once again, and with it, tax time, apparently. Our main source of income, alcohol, had yet to be produced, so my net worth was approximately 7 manure. Luckily for me, bronze tools sold extremely well, and the metal setup we'd sorted in winter was booming. Now with taxes sorted, it was time to get to work. The rye we planted was now ready for harvest, so with Zellybrat's help, we powered through the harvest. I got more cherry trees planted, smelted way more ore, and upgraded our storage situation. I stone gathered, fertilized crafted, fertilized spreaded, and my game crashed. So I did it all over again. More stones, more houses. Visited this lovely fishing village of Oystoverville, or whatever the fuck it's called, and begun more quests. Hired more villagers, hired more pigs. Look at this, more houses, more cherries, more poop. I finished all the quests in except for this pigeon killing quest, where I found with the perfect bow shot, you could do this. Oh, I did it. So I proceeded to waste most of my arrows for the next half an hour to occasionally do it again. I built a fishing hut off the corner of Pork Island, insulated more houses. Steve and I met another tree, organized the fields for wheat, oats, and flax. I carefully planned out the town market center, and then I built said market center. And before the end of the season could arrive, I placed a hops field between the river and the cherry orchard for our hopping related needs when the tavern finally comes. Another season for busting Ballsville. Once again, we really had a strong village going on here. Yet, still no tavern. There was no more time for distractions. We had to get that damn building unlocked. And I have a child. My daughter. Little, Norberta. So production XP is what we needed. And production XP is what we will get by producing things. I started in the smithy, smelting away, until I unlocked this, the Workshop 3. The reason I wanted this fine looking building is for one thing: wheels. Although wheels are completely useless and a decorative item only in Medieval Dynasty, as far as some off-camera testing could tell, they were great for production XP. And all I needed to craft them was planks. So I upped plank production in the woodsheds, and Steve's muscular legs started ferrying over every plank we could get our hands on. And I began the crafting. Oh shit, did I die? I died. After literally most of the season of summer, my resources had run dry. I'd crafted essentially everything useful I had into something useless, all in the name of a tavern. Oh, thank God. So, finally, after a year and a half working on Ballsville, I placed down the foundation of our drinking hub with 2 beautiful taverns. And this concluded summer year 2. I did 0 questing, 0 hiring, and 0 farming. All I did was So autumn year 2 was here. The town was booming and we had 2 brand new taverns constructed. But I still had a problem. The cherries hadn't grown. So I slept the whole season. So our second winter was here, and the cherry trees had grown. But it's winter, and the cherries are cold. So, wow, spring year 3. Look how beautiful the fucking trees. Finally, summer year 3. Everything was in order. The taverns, the cherries, the fields. After literally close to 100 hours of Medieval Dynasty, I was ready to get the people drinking and automate our alcohol production. To do this, I want Tavern 1 here producing the infamous Ballsville cherry wine, and Tavern 2 to be producing some form of beer. Then I can either take the drinks to market or get our new market area selling our drinks to the whole land for passive income. Let's start on Tavern 1 cherry wine. I went to go manually harvest some cherries to get things kicked off, but while I was busy taking cinematics of the town, my farmer actually did it for me. So that's cool. For our first harvest, we ended up with just over 1,000 cherries. The famous recipe for Ballsville wine is 1 cherry juice. And 1 cherry juice is 1 wine bottle and 20 cherries. Obviously, I've already got the cherries, so let's get the wine bottle. To make a wine bottle, I need to head back to where I spent the entire last summer, the workshop, which needs clay to craft the wine bottles. Luckily for me, not only had I been hoarding clay for pretty much this entire playthrough, but I also had my extractioner sheds actively digging it up. So we technically had everything we need for wine production. So I chucked 2 of our star producers in the workshop and put 30% of the workload on wine bottles. Then I put another 2 villagers in the tavern and mucked around with making sure the cherry juice was slightly higher than the cherry wine for maximum return. Ballsville cherry wine was now officially up and running. Tavern 2 was next, but beer was a little more complicated. Let's let's say rye beer. We need a beer bottle, 10 rye grain, a bucket of water, and hops. So starting in our workshop once again, we had beer bottles at 16% and buckets at 53%, which roughly equaled the same amount. When it comes to rye, I had about 700 stocked away from the last harvest, and hops, I have, I'm out of hops.
How is life treating?
All right, well, that'll do for now. Now I just put a villager on water gathering with the buckets and we should be good to go. There we are, 11 beers a day. Lastly, I headed to our relatively quiet market center and turned a handful of the stores to selling wine and beer. And there we go. Production and distribution are up and running. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Essentially, the toughest thing to do in the game, keeping alcohol flowing through the peasants of Oxbow's veins. Feels good, doesn't it? Almost feels as good as subbing to my Patreon. From all of us here at Ballsville, have a great night, everybody. Don't stay sober, and I'll see you next time.